Today we speak Labour Matters with the Honourable Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton. Let's talk about some plans for your ministry, your general outlook as you came into office.
Okay, you would know that what I had to do here is re-establish a labor ministry. And therefore, I had to find a framework to ensure that the ministry is guided by some principles, key principles, and I have outlined, and we use them as our watchword. Just if you the photograph there, you'll see 3 pillars there, and it names what it is. First thing, capacity building. My intention is to ensure that, firstly, the officers that are to man the Ministry of Labour are trained properly and retrained, and to ensure that I can intervene wherever to ensure that all employees and potential employees are trained and retrained, whether in public sector or private sector. The second pillar is human development, that is paying attention to workers' welfare. I believe Labour has a responsibility to ensure that as far as practicable, our workers, our people are housed properly. They have access to proper health care. They have access to education, themselves and their children. I have sought to expand the Board of Industrial Training programs to ensure that it can be evenly executed regardless of which region people reside in. The same thing we do on the coast, we must do it in 1, 7, 8, and 9, and in the Pomeroon River, and wherever Guyanese are at. So all the programs that are available will be executed in every region in this country. And there are 2 things I have instructed, 2 subset of persons that we forget in all our excitement to train, that is retirees. What do we do with people who retire at 55? We have to find a plan and a program to retrain them to come back into the world of work, because they have another 5 years, another 10 years to give to society. And you would know, a person who was a teacher or a nurse, that is the only thing they know for 35 years or which. So how we intervene at the level of the Board of Industrial Training to fashion programs, to retrain persons who are retired public servants or even from the private sector. And the other one is how we fashion programs to train disabled persons, because again, that is another subset of the population that we fail to do enough for. So those are 2 things that will be added to the program, and we have expanded the program to include all kinds of IT programs that were not there before.
I noted that you were out this weekend, especially in terms of the training. You started visiting regions already.
Well, yes, what we have set ourselves to ensure that we interact with every regional democratic council and every town council so that we can outline our programs, because we would have to do these programs collaboratively with them. I would not impose myself on any region, and therefore we have so far visited 4 regions. We have 6 more to go. Friday we will visit Region 5. Next Monday we will be in Region 8. And we have visitation until the end, until 25th of November, to cover all the regions, and also 2 mining companies, gold mining companies. I want to visit them on site. That is Aurora and the Troy Resources. So the visitation will continue to engage the regional councils to outline the programs that we have planned for their regions, for them to also help us to fashion the type of programs that are relevant to their region. So those are the things we have been doing. It's a pleasure doing it. The role is to service and give service to people.
Of course. Minister, where are we with the placement of labor officers for regions outside of Region 4?
Well, we have a plan and that is part of the engagement with the councils, to say to them that we are expecting you to recommend persons to us to be trained and sent back into the regions to work. We plan to train for appointment at least 2 labor officers in every region, 2 occupation safety and health officers, and 2 co-op officers. Also a CMRA officer and a BIT officer, so that people can get service in their region, whichever region they reside. And that is, it's a program we are now putting together. We have had conversations with the Kurukuru College to help us to effect these training programs. And so we are working to have that to see if perhaps before the end of the year we can have these programs happen, so that I've set myself a timeline that by next June all regions should be outfitted properly with technical officers of the Ministry of Labor.
All right. Can I ask what is being done in terms of workers' rights on one hand, and how are you going about addressing workplace accidents?
Okay, workplace accidents, one of the issues we have presently, and that's why I have to train more OSH officers, because you don't have enough to police the coast and Region 4. And that is why the training is about. In the regions, I want people who are resident in regions to be trained and sent to the region and stay in the region to work. And we have to do more educational programs. We are now toying with a project we want to do, a campaign we call Safe Work campaign. Not just, occupation safety and health. I think they have a month or a day assigned to it. I want to launch a Safe Work program that is sustainable, because already I can tell you I have had to issue at least 4 press releases already in the 8 weeks I'm here. 3 persons losing their lives in the interior in gold operations, and 1 person walking up some scaffold or some 4-story building on the East Coast. And therefore I want to bring that to an end. I don't want to have to issue press releases regularly and send condolences to families. I want to ensure that we can have enough officers trained to supervise workplaces, and I dare say, importantly, whether private sector or public sector. Because I believe the same way how we will go to Banks IH to have them effect proper workplace regulations, we must do it at GGMC, the Ministry of Health, wherever, because they're workplaces. Importantly, I have instructed the OSH department that they must also pay attention to the fact that we have COVID that now become a workplace issue, so that they can properly supervise workplaces, so that we have people protected, they don't lose their life and their limb. And all of those things are happening. We are in conversation with the Ministry of Health to help us to guide our officers regarding COVID protocols. I believe the Ministry of Labor, via OSH, we have a duty to ensure that all places are properly outfitted to deal with the pandemic, because it's a safety issue, it's a health issue. So we have an intervention with the Ministry of Health, and we will continue to develop that.
I'd ask you about addressing workers' rights. Now, in terms of the there is a transition that is happening with the government right now. And some people believe that they're being wrongfully dismissed. Could you address that in any way? And what is in place for persons who feel that they're being dismissed? What can they do?
Well, two things. One is this. Political appointees. Look, I am the minister here. I brought with me as minister a personal assistant. The understanding is that whenever Hamiliton goes, he also goes. And therefore, people are confusing political appointees with public service commission or public service ministry appointment. And first, they have to get that fact straight. Is the person who was relieved a political appointee? And political appointee must be ethical enough to know that when your bosses go, you have to go. You shouldn't stick around. It's a different story with a public service commission appointed public servant. Now we have a procedure here. It is not talk. If you believe you were not properly relieved of, there is a procedure. You come here, lodge your complaint to the Ministry of Labor, and we do the necessary things. We have our lawyers look at it. We have a lawyer here to appoint another one. You fill the form up, and we assign a labor officer to intervene and investigate your matter, and then they will come back here and report. People call me by the dozens, and they tell me about all these matters, and I say, how do we investigate when you don't want to come and report formally? I can't investigate hearsay. He said, them said. If you believe you have a case that is proper for practices that you consider discriminatory or wrongful termination, you come here, lodge your complaint, and we investigate it, and let us see where to go from there. But if you have not done that, it makes no sense you screaming out there. Nothing will happen as regards the Ministry of Labor, because I have to have something to work with.
All right, Minister, we are in the oil and gas era right now. So what is being done in terms of, one, equal pay for workers with Exxon, and what about the bit training in oil and gas?
Okay, a couple of things there. One, I have had conversation with Exxon and other oil companies, Tullow and other subcontractors, and I made two things clear to them. And I said to Exxon, listen, whilst I have no complaint that you are culpable, I believe that you have an obligation and a duty to ensure that all the subcontractors you hire to work in Guyana, they follow the law. Because when Guyanese people talk about oil and gas, the other people, they don't know. The only company they refer is Exxon. So two things I said to them. One, I have reports that suggest that your contractors, subcontractors, whatever you call them, are bringing people into our space and pay them 5 and 10 times more money than Guyanese. That will not be tolerated. So, equal pay for equal job. Simple as that. Where we have the technical competencies and capacity in Guyana, you must first seek out our people to ensure they be employed. I could understand for the high-tech skills that we might not have. Whilst we are training people to get there, you bring in some expatriate to do the work. But any job that people are doing out there, whether they're Guyanese, Filipinos, Trinidadians, they must be paid. Because I have a difficulty. I've heard people, chef out there. I mean, all of us go in the kitchen, we know when you're cutting up the meat, whoever cutting it up is the same thing you have to do. Whoever needing the flour for make bread or roti or whatever, same thing. So explain to me why a Trinidadian that needing the flour must be paid 5 times more than a Guyanese who needing the same flour. Only give me that explanation. So I've said to them that equal pay for equal job. Second issue is the Constitution of this republic says that Guyanese are allowed to assemble, to form an organization, to be part of an organization, and that right you and your people will not deny them. So, if people work with these companies, they want to form workers' rep organization, they must be allowed to do it. Those who want to form unions, they must be allowed to do it. Those who want to be part of existing unions, they must be allowed to do it, and you must facilitate it. And I said to them, it makes business sense that you have one or two persons speaking to you on behalf of the workers than 100 persons. Because they will come and knock on your door if they feel that they're not treated properly. And maybe if you fail to respond, who knows where it can end or will end. So how we do that is to ensure that we train our officers to man the oil and gas industry. And we have started in that regard. Because I can't send the officer on the ship out there, the OSH officer or labor officer, to look unless they know what they're looking for. So I have to bring my officers up to speed to be able to work offshore. And that is what we are doing. We have some engagements, we have some programs. To tell you, we have set up joint technical committee with Exxon. We have set up joint technical committee, OSH committee with AmChan, who said they will help us. We have been having conversation, I've had conversation with ILO, who said they will help us to develop our OSH legislation and other legislation surrounding the oil and gas industry. So all of those things are happening as I speak to you to upgrade our people. Two officers already of the OSH, they have already went to Trinidad and they were trained and certified. Now we have to put in motion how they get on the ship. But I don't want to rush it. I would say that by the beginning of the year, I will be in a position whereby my labor officers and my OSH officers can properly supervise what is happening out there. I should tell you, just 2 weeks ago, we set up a joint technical committee with MARAD because, again, OSH officers and labor officers will have to review what is happening on ships that is in our space. And they will have to do it in conjunction with MARAD. So those are some of the things that are happening in the new industry. Industries, primarily the oil and gas industries, to ensure we can properly supervise at the level of OSH, at the level of labor, and that they honor their obligations.
All right, Minister, I noted that you said you wanted to visit two of our large-scale miners. Can you give us an update, one on Troy Resources and on Rusal specifically?
Okay, Rusal, I led a government delegation to engage Rusal. Firstly, we needed to find out whether they're in Guyana or out of Guyana. And they attended the meeting. I think one of their counterparts came in from Russia to attend the meeting. And they said the fact that they attended the meeting suggests that they're in Guyana. You know, if that said they're out of Guyana, then there's nothing to discuss in my view. The fact that they say they are, and they outline some issues that are technical in nature, that are financial in nature. I had Minister Robeson-Ben accompany me to the meeting, not as Minister of Home Affairs, but because of his technical competencies, working in the bauxite industry for decades, and so. And we advised Rusal that they must put up a proposal to the government, that we can work with something. They have since done that. The Ministry of Natural Resources, my colleague minister, has reported to me that presently Ministry of Natural Resources, GGMC, they're studying the proposal And after that is done, we will re-engage RUSAL to see how urgently we can have a reopening of the bauxite operations in the Berbice River, because the most important issue for us is jobs and employment for workers. You know, in that whole scheme of things, nearly 600 people lost their jobs, because when Rusal closed, Ollendorf also closed, which was the shipper for the bauxite for Rusal. I'm since advised that the government has asked Ollendorf to hold their hands from getting out of Guyana, because they had already packed their equipment and so in containers, and they have it on the wharf. And if Rusal open back and we don't have a shipper, it's just like we haven't opened the bauxite. So that has happened. Troy Resources, I have to go in there. I know they have been trying to reach me since I became minister. My position is, I will have no meeting with Troy Resources, neither the new company that took over the Aurora mines, no? Right. I will have no conversation with them in Georgetown. I want to have a conversation with them on the site, where I can speak to management and I can speak to workers. Because a fundamental issue there is the issue of workers' rights and labor relations. I've heard all kinds of stories. I'm not passing any judgment. People every day report to me, people who work there, people who have relationship of persons who work there, report to me every day different issues. I will make my judgment when I engage them, when I see from a OSA standpoint, me and myself and my officers will be in there, what you have, what conditions you have people working on. Then I will be able to properly interact with the management of the companies going forward. But importantly, two fundamental questions I will raise, like I've raised with Exxon: equal pay for equal work, and the right of workers to form labor unions and be in labor unions. You will not stop them from doing that. I'm told they're doing all kinds of shenanigans, but again, I don't want to speak to the matters too much. When I go there, I have a visit scheduled to go to Aurora, the 23rd of November, and the 25th to Troy Resources. I'm told presently the Troy Resources managing director from Australia, wherever, is presently in the country. They were seeking to have a courtesy call paid on me, you know, and I'm very careful. I don't want a picture up that suggests that everything is okay, everything is nice. Until, and I can say to you that I have those two visits planned for those two entities.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask your position on raising the minimum wage for the private sector.
Okay. I came here and I met that matter. That was discussed at the tripartite committee. And there was a recommendation of $60,000 per month since last March. I'm told since then the tripartite committee has not reached. I can tell you as we speak, just this morning I was speaking to the chief labor officer, where we will reconfigure and reestablish the tripartite committee as urgent as now. One of the things that in the engagement with the private sector is the conversation of the intervention of COVID and the impact on their businesses. To be fair, I have to take that into consideration. So that I'm paying attention to. What I can say to all people who will listen to me is that the minimum wage will be raised. I am comfortable with the recommendation made of $60,000. The question is, should we do it now or can we do it now? How will it impact more workers who are working in the private sector? You know that because of COVID, many private sector entities would have sent people home. Some people I know are on half salary for being home. They work 1 month, for full salary, and then they go home and the people give them half month. The question is raising the minimum wage right like now in this time. My thoughts are it might impact negatively the same people we're trying to help. And therefore, I have to take all of that into consideration. And I'll be advised going forward and to see how urgently we can make the announcement, have the regulation effected that govern that matter. So it's being discussed at the moment with all the stakeholders. Some want me to run, some want me to move slow. I would rather stay in the middle of all of that, taking everything into consideration. And that is what I'm doing. If COVID was not an intervening factor with business and impact on business, I would have already made the announcement and deal with whatever legal regulation to be. But I have to be mindful that you raise the minimum wage to $60,000 and a company that got 100 people, they might send over 25 or 50, then, I might end up being blamed for doing a good thing. So that is where that is at. But it will happen, I can say. But I'm paying attention to the impact of COVID and business.
We've just spoken with the Minister of Labour, Mr. Joseph Hamilton. Thanks for joining us.